Thank you so much, Wendy. Uh, what we'll be talking about today with respect to project relationship management, management strategies, and the organizational culture. How do these two interact and the importance of the organizational culture when we as project management professionals are called upon to do different jobs in organizations, agencies, departments. Our objectives today, we're going to learn about what organizational cultures really are, and we're going to learn about your primary leadership style and why it's important, when it's appropriate, when it's inappropriate. We're also going to learn about some prominent management leadership styles, theories, and approaches. We're going to dwell quite a bit of time on what's the best type of management style. And we're also going to include some guidelines and best practices for determining an organization's culture and choosing an appropriate management strategy for that culture. Let's diverse a little bit. What is project relationship management? I define project relationship management as the active development, cultivation, and maintenance of project-associated relationships. During a project, you're going to encounter different types of individuals, personalities within different leadership positions. They all have their different agendas, their different biases, their different inputs. All of these are essentially relationships, and in a previous presentation, I defined about 7 of those relationships, and that particular presentation was recorded, and you can go back and review that one with this particular host. Within the context of project relationship management, within the context of organizational culture, what we as project management professionals have to realize is that organizations have personalities, and we call them cultures, and we have to be aware of these organizational cultures and their importance in our being successful. We have to determine the appropriate management strategy on a project-by-project basis. We may, especially if we're coming from the outside, say from a consulting firm or from a PMO office, and we're going out into the business community, and we're basically outsiders, okay? And our management style that was successful in a previous project, at a previous agency, a previous department, may not be a successful management style for what you're currently doing. We have to determine those on a project-by-project basis, on a customer-by-customer basis, and we must be able to discern the different natures of those organizational cultures, and we have to be able to act and react accordingly. Why culture matters in organizations? First of all, it defines the primary importance of the organization. It sets their standards. It really sets their decor and how they do things, how things get done in this particular organization. And that can differ from organization to organization. You're going to go into organizations where you would swear you don't understand how anything gets done. But things get done. There's a way to do things. And the 2 points on this slide that I want to emphasize, and I've got that in bold, is that culture sets the tone for how members treat each other and how they should treat non-members. If you're coming from the outside into an organization to do a particular project, you are basically a non-member of that group, of that department, of that organization. The culture of that organization or that group or that department is going to determine how you're treated. Are you going to be accepted? Are you going to be seen as a competitor? Are you going to be treated in a distant manner? Culture determines that. I'm quite sure all of you have experienced that type of thing as you move from project to project and organization to organization. That culture instructs members about how to deal with their external environment. You are part of the external environment in that case. And even if you are a project manager within a particular group, you have acclimated yourself to that group's culture so that you can be successful within that group. And that anybody coming from the outside providing services to that particular group, that culture determines how they are going to be treated. Or is it going to be aggressively? Are they going to be treated proactively or responsibly? Your culture is going to determine that. One of the management gurus, if you want to call him that, for a lot of years was a guy called Peter Drucker. And he had a particular quote that's been attributed to him. He said, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." And what did he mean by that? He meant that no matter how great your strategy is as a leader, and that's a management strategy, that's a new initiative for your company or whatever, no matter how great the strategy is, if your culture is not accepting of new ideas, new ways of doing things, new strategies, then that culture is going to defeat that purpose, defeat the purpose of that strategy. That gives you an idea of the importance of organizational culture and what we do and why it's important for you to take that into consideration when you're on a particular job. There are three ways to deal with organizational culture. And when you go into an organization, I implore you to use what I call organizational culture analysis. That's a term that I defined as going into an organization and determining that culture and determining an appropriate strategy for that culture, doing an analysis of the culture. But there are three ways that you can address culture. You can work against it, but I would think that that's like swimming upstream. Culture has been in place for years, perhaps decades. Swimming upstream, that may not be a viable option. You can try and change it. Okay, that's something you may try to do. But is that what you're really called to do? Okay. Decisions, policies that are being made, they've been made again for years and decades. You're coming in as a project manager. Trying to change that may not be a viable option. Or you can work within it. And let's talk a little bit about that. Let's go back a little bit before we get into that, just diverse just a bit. What's a project? A project is defined as, in itself, a short-term or temporary task engagement or endeavor. Short-term, meaning that you're going to get in there, do your job, and get out. Okay? That short term may be 2 months, it may be 2 years, but basically it's not an ongoing operational type of aspect of an organization or a group or a department. It has a specific beginning, it has specific tasks and accountabilities, and it has a specific product at the end, and it ends. Okay, so keeping that definition in mind, let's look at dealing with that organizational culture. First option, work against it. We don't have time to do that as project management professionals. As I said, it's like swimming upstream. You are not going to come in and change your culture. The second option, change it. You're not going to come in and change your culture. That is not your job. Your job is not to change your culture. Your job is not to fight the status quo. Your job is to work within it. Find out how things get done in that organization. Okay? No matter how dysfunctional you may think it is, no matter how inappropriate some of their management techniques are, you're a project management professional, you're a professional manager. Most of the managers, quite frankly, that you're going to encounter